Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see you. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi, friends. Did you miss us? We missed you. We're back for season 2. This is yet again another episode, another season of You Haven't Seen That. We are a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
Yeah, so exciting.
I was worried I was going to forget how to do that part. Pluto, a sophomore slump.
It's really hard to say your name. So today we are kicking off our second season with Pulp Fiction. And then we'll be rounding off this episode with a top 4 of our favorite John Travolta or Samuel L. Jackson, or a combination of both. Movies, performances, I don't know, whatever we feel like. So it's been a while. We just spent a really long time catching up with each other because maybe surprising to you all, I didn't really talk to each other. Well, Geoff and I
save all our communication for the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing. No side group chats, nothing.
Geoff and I did not talk to each other once over this break.
Not one bit.
No, but it's been a long time. So Ben, tell us, how did your show go?
Oh, it was great. We did Something Rotten, high school. I direct high school musicals, for those of you who aren't aware. And that's why we've been off, because we were in crazy season for that. But it went really well. All 4 performances went great, and happy to have time to watch movies and TV shows again. I got incredibly behind on both. Well, not movies. I didn't really have any on my list, but TV shows I got incredibly behind. So I'm still crawling out of that. I've tried to stay up with like the ones I really care about, but the ones I only semi care about have piled up big time for me.
It's a busy TV time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Geoff and I have been feeling that too, which is good, I guess, because it's been kind of a slump with movies in the theaters.
'Tis the season.
Yeah. All right, Geoff, why don't you hit us with your recap of Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction, the second film from writer-director Quentin Tarantino, starring John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, and Ving Rhames, and in featured roles in the movie, Harvey Keitel, Christopher Walken, Rosanna Arquette, Steve Buscemi makes an appearance, among other people. This was
Quentin Tarantino.
And Quentin Tarantino himself, exactly, and a very fun appearance, if you will. Released in October 1994, this movie had an $8 million budget and grossed $214 million at the box office. Quite the return. Was one of the top 10 highest grossing movies at the global box office in 1994. Much like an alum of the You Haven't Seen That universe, Parasite, and the most recent Best Picture winner, Anora, Pulp Fiction won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. This movie was loved by critics with a 95 on Metacritic, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. It won Best Original Screenplay, was nominated for Picture, Director, Editing, and John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, and Uma Thurman all received Oscar nominations for their performances.
Fun facts. Thank you. So, Ben, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit of your history with this movie?
This is, I believe, the 3rd Quentin Tarantino movie I've seen. One was Inglourious Basterds, I watched a long time ago. And then for this podcast, we watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Pulp Fiction is one of those movies that I know is always acclaimed. I know is always, discussed among greatest, especially in recent times, movies of all time. It's one of those ones that I just feel like I didn't really know much about, despite being such an iconic movie. I feel like I didn't really know the premise. I didn't really know, I knew about the John Travolta, Uma Thurman dancing scene and stuff like that, but I didn't know really what it was about or really how it fit together. I mean, I had some guesses because it was Quentin Tarantino and just what I
Yeah.
but and the title, but I didn't really know too much about it before watching it.
I was gonna say, did you know anything about like I guess like the memes, if you will, or the quotes or anything like
Not
that?
too much, no, and not a lot that like struck me like the way like when we watched The Shining, where I was like, oh, that's from this, oh, that's from this. Like there wasn't too much of that with Pulp Fiction, actually.
Geoff, what's your history?
So I've seen Pulp Fiction about 6 or 7 times now, including once on the big screen, which was the last time that I saw this movie. I saw it at an Alamo Drafthouse movie party. They even gave us a fun little mug that's pretty cool there. And they also gave us a pen that is like the adrenaline shot that Vincent stabs Mia with. It's not a very good pen, by the way. You can't really press down on it. It kind of clicks back into place. But yeah, I've seen Pulp Fiction about 6 or 7 times. I've done rewatches did a rewatch of it, especially tied to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when it was coming out. And we'll definitely be doing it whenever QT's next movie comes out again. So yeah, I've seen Pulp a few times now.
And I, similar to you, Ben, didn't really know anything about like the plot of this movie. I'd seen the opening scene in the diner before, only because I'll say this now, but there's so in Game Night, the best movie ever, my favorite movie of all time, they quote Pulp Fiction, and it's from that beginning diner scene when she pulls the gun on the diner and they start the robbery sequence. So anyways, I believe at some point Geoff had showed me that just so that I would better understand what they were referencing in Game Night. But outside of that, I knew, kind of some of the stuff that Geoff had gotten from the Alamo thing and some of the memes, but I didn't really know much of anything about the movie as a whole.
You had to get a Game Night reference in there.
I've now seen 4 of the 5 nominees for Best Picture that year.
Look at that.
Which has got to be like the year I've seen the most nominees from. Just need to see 4 Weddings and a Funeral now.
There you go.
Add it to the list.
Oh, and this is my second Quentin Tarantino movie. The other one, obviously, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which we, as Ben said, watched for this podcast last season. So, Geoff, what is your rating for Pulp Fiction?
We can probably skip me, but no, to me, it's so weird thinking about Pulp because it's not. The way I think about it is that I don't think about how good it is. I think about how it relates or how it compares to Quentin's other work. To me, it's a 5 easily, but a 5 out of 5. But it's hard to compare it to maybe his other movies, which I might like a little bit more. That being said, I find this movie so memorable, so fun, so cool, such incredible performances and moments, and truly a captivating story that now that I've seen it a few times, I get more out of it each time I see it, which I can't say for a lot of movies.
And what about you, Ben?
This is a movie where I feel like it's a pretty big gulf between like appreciation and enjoyment. I didn't like it as much as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But that's more of my kind of vibe and my kind of type of thing. I like the Hollywood story of that. But I certainly understand when you put in perspective of what this movie must have felt like in 1994 compared to all the other movies that came out at that time. Like it definitely had a different feel to it. Even though in my opinion like the early 90s is like the best time for a lot of movies. Like almost all my favorite movies come from that era, but they were all told in linear narratives and things like that. I think like this kind of has a very different feel than all of those. So I feel like I don't know what I want to. Oh, I'm so out of practice. I want to give it a like 3.5 for enjoyment and like a 4.5 for appreciation. I'm gonna go with a 4. I'm gonna let it stay right at a 4. I was between a 3.75 and a 4, but I'm gonna round up because I'm feeling generous.
Good thing we caught you on a generous day.
You caught me during a transitional period. So
Exactly. So I am actually undecided on what score I'm going to give it as of this moment.
We're so rusty.
no, and that's a good thing. I think that's a testament to this movie, because I know the first time I saw it, I was definitely one of those where I'm like, I like this movie, but it's caught me so off guard that I didn't quite know what to think about it or what to say about it. So I feel it. I totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff and I watched it yesterday. I've been thinking about it. Definitely torn. I agree with you, Ben. There's definitely a difference between an appreciation score and an enjoyment score. I think I'm going to agree with you and give it a 4.
Nice. I'll take it.
Maybe I'll make my maybe I'll be a little more mathematical, and I'll give each one an enjoyment and an appreciation score this year, and then average the two.
I like that.
There you go.
That's a fun approach. No, that's awesome. That makes me very happy, because this is a movie I've been wanting you both to see and check out ever since we came up with the idea for this podcast. I know when we kind of put down a list of movies that we have to see and movies that we have to throw in there, this was right near the top of what we had to include there. So I've been like keeping my fingers crossed the entire time waiting for this recording.
Don't let it be a Matrix.
Oh my gosh, that devastated me. But no, I was keeping my fingers crossed the whole time. And again, when Amanda and I were kind of talking about it a little bit yesterday, or sat up through it today, she never let me into her mind or her thoughts. So I've been waiting with bated breath.
It's nice you two are speaking again.
I know, right? It's great.
Our house is so much less silent. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this movie was definitely interesting. I don't know what I was expecting. I can see, okay. Like, again, this is only the second Tarantino movie that I've seen, but I feel like there was a lot of similarities between Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and this, especially in the storytelling. So again, I thought it was interesting that this is broken up into different stories, kind of like how in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there were 3 very distinct, not stories, but different days and kind of like pieces to that movie. Some of them I enjoyed more than others, which I think is something that unfortunately you're going to run into when you do take a movie and chop it up into pieces and be like, well, for this chunk, we're going to devote it to this story and these characters, and this is what's happening. Whereas if it was spread throughout the movie evenly, maybe you wouldn't mind it as much. But it's kind of like Kinds of Kindness, Geoff, with like being split up into the different stories. So then you're like, well, I really didn't like that, and that lasted like 45 minutes. So
I think that's a really good point, because I think, like, and if on the flip side, if you really like something, you're like, I just want to be with these characters the whole time. I don't want to leave them and go do something else. And I think that was to some extent true for me too. Like, I really enjoyed John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson together. And when it wasn't the two of them, especially when it was Bruce Willis, I was a little less interested and kind of like,
yeah. So I was going to ask, like, which one out of the 3 was your guys' favorite, and which one was your least favorite?
Well, I definitely liked any scene that Travolta and Jackson were in together. Those were definitely my favorite scenes. And like I just said, like I felt like the Bruce Willis story to me was the least interesting. I think Bruce Willis is kind of limited as an actor, as much as I love Die Hard. I think, I don't know, I get a lot of sameness from Bruce Willis in a lot of things I've seen him in, and this was just, I don't know, it also felt like his stuff, like, I didn't connect with it really. It just felt kind of gratuitous in some ways.
That's fair. I think it's interesting seeing him and his world, how he's kind of like the outsider to all of this, where Jules and Vincent and Mia are all connected to Marcellus Wallace and the mob and whatever you want to call it, the gangster world. And then there's Butch, who's on the outside, he's got his own little world. He's trying to get out. He's trying to escape, much like Jules kind of has the revelation about it, one point in the movie. And yeah, he comes at it from such a different perspective and just, trying to escape it all. It's so interesting to see that intertwined with all of this. And I agree. I love segments, and I've grown an appreciation for the Butch Coolidge story as the more I've seen it. But yes, whenever Vincent and Jules are together, like that whole the first time we see them together as they're driving up to the apartment, and then as they're going, and then the whole scene at Jimmy's house, going into
loved
the diner.
all of that.
So good. So fun and entertaining. And I think there's one connecting factor to all of that, and that is Samuel L. Jackson. Jules Winfield is one of the coolest characters I've ever seen put on the big screen. He is awesome. And
He was super entertaining in that first scene.
So good.
Yeah.
And as they're talking about just random things, these two guys
McDonald's.
who just
And TV pilots.
TV pilots, foot massages.
I loved the extended discussion about McDonald's, followed by what about Burger Whoppers? I didn't go to Burger King.
I didn't go to Burger King. You crazy?
Yeah, it's just just two guys talking about just stuff that it didn't relate to anything in the plot. It was just two guys just chit-chatting about stuff.
Yeah.
Which, two side notes about that. One, I was like, Vincent is one of those annoying people that goes to Europe and then won't stop talking about it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
He's like, everything's just a little bit different there. It's like, okay.
My guy. Guy's carrying his own heroin needles and everything like that. Yeah, he's that kind of guy.
Well, and then I thought it was really interesting, Ben, because you mentioned talking about the TV shows and hearing the differences in the language that Jules was using versus what we would say today. He was like, you film a show, and he was like, a show meaning a single episode.
Right.
And the entire series he was calling a program.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so interesting, because when he kept saying you film a show, and I was like, no, you don't film a show, you just film one episode. But then he kept talking, and I was like, oh, interesting. So we've changed the way that we talk about TV.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if I feel like they definitely called them pilots back then even too, but and they called them episodes. I don't know. I don't know how much of that is the vernacular of the industry back then and how much of that is just the way this character was speaking. Yeah.
Well, either way, still interesting.
Yeah. I almost felt like his explanation made it more confusing though, because of that. I was like, I could explain a TV pilot better. Just give me a call.
Right. It's the first. I know. So annoying. Speaking of TV, I'm going to pause you for a sec. Ben, you're the TV expert of this podcast. Would you watch Fox Force 5 based on Mia Wallace's description of it?
It doesn't sound like my kind of show.
Not surprised. Do you think a show like that would work if it was actually taken to air?
Well, anything can work with the right people involved.
Touche.
It would probably work better in today's market.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't quite feel like a '90s TV show unless it was on some kind of Showtime type.
It's like The Boys.
Yeah. I was about to say, what streamer would pick it up?
Netflix. Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
it screams Netflix.
Speaking of Mia, I was surprised at how little Uma Thurman was in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I kept, I thought she was a bigger part because I feel like, she's on the poster and she, was nominated for the Oscar, and that iconic scene with her and John Travolta. I just assumed her part was bigger. I mean, obviously she makes a big impression, but I just didn't realize it was as small as it was.
Same. I was also very surprised by that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that caught me off guard too. And you only see her very briefly during the Butch Coolidge segment of the movie. And yeah, she makes such a memorable impression. The way that Uma Thurman delivers every line is just awesome. And the conversation that her and Vincent have at the restaurant is great and adds so much character to it. And it also is weird because as we're building up to this moment, you only hear about her through Vincent and Jules gossiping, being like, oh, because Tony Rocky Horror gave her a foot massage, she was thrown out a 4-story window and developed a speech impediment as a result. And so you have this impression like, okay, you have to be so careful, extra careful with her. But the way she's talking and the way she is, she just lowers the guard of everybody that she engages with because she's just so cool and personable and wants to have fun and probably doesn't get to have a lot of fun outside of the Marcellus Wallace compound. So no, it's she makes such a great impression whenever she's on screen.
Yeah, and also a lesson to all you people out there, don't just go snorting things that you find in people's belongings.
Very important lesson from this movie. There are a lot of important takeaways from Pulp Fiction. You know, how to properly clean a car. You shouldn't be snorting stuff. All of that.
That heroin looked like straight up powdered sugar.
I don't think that's what she thought it was, but
No. But it really, I'm pretty sure they must have used powdered sugar because that's exactly what it looked like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I would imagine there's probably not too many things you can use for heroin that are
right.
I mean, that's fair.
I think that's something too that is fun with the details of the movie and how you pick up on stuff throughout. Where when we see Mia in her introduction, the first thing we see of her before we even really see her face is her snorting a line of cocaine. And when Vincent is talking with Lance, his drug dealer, and they're talking about baggies and stuff, and I guess normally he would use a balloon to store heroin, I assume just like a normal blow up balloon, but instead he's like, is a baggie okay? Because that, I imagine when I think of like cocaine, that's probably how cocaine is given, and maybe that's what tricked Mia into thinking like, oh, this is just whatever, because she could see it. So, you know, I think the movie does a good job in setting up a lot of the characterizations and the plot points and understanding like, okay, it rewards you for paying attention and everything kind of clicks and makes sense as it goes along. It's like, okay, yep, her thinking this is cocaine is 100% believable. This totally makes sense. And that she would just be like, oh, yep, this is the first thing I'm going to do as soon as I see this. So, man, Vincent's got to be more careful with his drugs.
That's fair. I had not thought about the fact that he changed it from, being in a balloon to being in the baggie. So that's fair. Maybe that is why she was confused. They also did point out that something about how heroin was like on the rise. Mm-hmm. So if it's something that maybe she doesn't know is on the rise and, everyone else is like always doing cocaine, she's obviously sees a white substance and thinks that it's cocaine.
That's another great point. Exactly.
Well, and apparently this movie got like criticized to some degree for like glamorizing heroin, and I don't know that I agree that it does, but
yeah, I don't know that it glamorizes it per se, but
yeah,
you're also not really seeing. Well, you're seeing bad side effects if you take it the incorrect way, but the people and the times that they take it the correct way, there are no consequences, but they also don't really show, I don't know, like it's not like they snort some cocaine and they're like, oh my god, I feel amazing, this is like the greatest thing ever. Like they just go on with their normal life. Mm-hmm. Which almost makes me feel like, why are you even doing it?
Right.
I feel like this movie, like when you think about like what's an example of Samuel L. Jackson doing his Samuel L. Jackson thing, I feel like it's this. Or if you want to be like, what's an example of Bruce Willis doing his Bruce Willis thing? That's this. Or an example of like, what's Christopher Walken doing his Christopher Walken thing? Like, I feel like a lot of the actors are like doing their exact thing they're like most known for in terms of like personality, maybe with the exception of John Travolta, which I know that this was like quite a but even John Travolta dancing has such a look, like it has such a thing that like is iconic John Travolta. Like I feel like a lot of these actors are like just like, and it makes me wonder like, did Pulp Fiction capitalize on this or did it like create this?
So I think that's interesting. I think that's a really, really good point. And with the JT character, he is almost hearkening back to Danny Zuko in Grease or Saturday Night Fever or things like that. Because he is the cool character and the way he talks, man. Like a lot of elements to his character are just cool. And it was interesting looking up like the where this movie falls in the roles of all of these actors, like the main actors' careers. You know, with John Travolta, he had a great early start to his career. He did Carrie, Grease, Saturday Night Fever.
Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome Back, Blowout with Brian De Palma. But then he was in a kind of quiet spell and missed out on a lot of roles and didn't really hit. And this was his big return back. With Samuel L. Jackson, you could argue this is his breakout role, maybe. I mean, he's gotten some kind of higher and the call sheet roles before this, but this was really his like, hey everybody, this is Samuel L. Jackson. Same with Uma Thurman, this is her breakout role. And with Bruce Willis, this is him right in the middle of his star run that began with Die Hard and ended probably with The Sixth Sense or maybe a little bit after that. So this is like right in the heart of everything. So you could argue that for a Travolta, especially for Samuel L. Jackson, this was like the catalyst to forming the personality trait of so many of his characters that he's portrayed later on in films, you could say. But maybe with John Travolta, it's like, hey, what works for me? We've identified this. I need to be, I'm the cool guy. I'm the song and dance guy. This is what I should be leaning towards. So that's a really good question, thought, and perspective to put behind this, Ben, in terms of where they'd be going with this.
What do you guys think of Quentin Tarantino putting himself in movies? And dropping the N-word multiple times.
It's a choice. I think it's funny because he did it in his first movie, Reservoir Dogs. He has a co-lead role or a major supporting role in another movie with George Clooney called From Dusk Till Dawn, where they're hunting vampires and stuff. And he's also cast himself in a role in Django Unchained. What's funny is that in the movies that he's directed, that he's put himself in, he is the worst part of the movie, which is funny. It's like very noticeable that it's like in Reservoir Dogs, he's on the screen at the same time as Steve Buscemi, Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, and then there's him. Or in this movie, he's in the same room with Harvey Keitel, Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta, and then there's him. So it's very, very apparent that, like, yeah, he's having fun with it. He's a movie nerd at heart. He's written books about movies, so he's a movie nerd at heart. Of course, he wants to put himself in these sort of situations. Almost similarly, this podcast will be coming out right in the heart of Apple TV's series The Studio, and I'm thinking back to one of the early episodes with the One Take episode where Seth Rogen just had to get involved in some part of the shoot or whatever. He just has got to get involved, and I guess he's developed enough of a rapport with the cast around him that it's like, it's okay, you know, this is fine. So I don't know. I think it's a choice, but to me, it didn't take away ultimately from the product.
Yeah, I didn't mind it too much in this one. I think in general, it's just kind of odd if you're a director who's not an actor, like putting yourself into movies. I get sometimes actors decide they want to direct and then they're in their movies and whatever, and it's all weird. But I think in this situation, it is just kind of weird, especially giving yourself such a big part. Like if you just want to like be in a quick cameo or something, like that's different. But yeah, I don't know. Doesn't totally sit right with me.
I'm with you, Amanda. I feel like, you know, like you said, like Alfred Hitchcock, like, oh, he's put him like his, what was it, his like profile or whatever, you know, like some little nod is fine, but like giving yourself like a prominent thing, like I'm like, how much better would that scene have been with a better actor, you know,
Right.
like, and I think that's like, to me, like an example of like, you know, maybe a little too auteurist in the sense of like, maybe like this would have been a time to, you know, not give in to your instincts on everything. And, you know, because I think like it feels it feels self-indulgent when it's not very because it's not very good, like that part of
Yeah.
it. And so I feel like if you're a great actor or something, like you said, someone who was acting and then went into directing is one thing, but like even
Hmm.
then, like I don't know, like I feel like you kind of lose your perspective when you're the director and um or vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think that like it felt to me like a noticeable weak link in the moment. I don't think it really impacted my whole enjoyment of the movie, but that particular scene I think really didn't work all that well because he wasn't very good in it.
Yeah. It's kind of like the studio when no one wanted to give Ron Howard the note. Maybe
Right.
no one wanted to give
But Ron
Tarantino the
Howard
note.
stopped acting when he became a director, even though he was great as Richie Cunningham and Opie.
So yeah, maybe no one wanted to give Tarantino the note
That's, I
that
mean,
he.
I would think back at this time in his, I could imagine that now for sure. But you'd
Mhm.
think at this time, but I guess this was also like Miramax's first thing, and they probably were letting him have free reign. Because I read that like they took it to, I forget what was it, TriStar or something, and they called it Too Demented. So
Oh,
it gave like
jeez.
Miramax its first kind of big thing.
Mm, there we go. That's fair. Yeah, it's interesting. And because as soon as he gets off the screen in terms of like really prominently talking, you're immediately introduced to Harvey Keitel's character, which is if we were outside of say the core five of the movie, the core five actors, Harvey Keitel's performance as Winston Wolfe might be my favorite of the movie. Just is so good and so fun, and that whole sequence is just so great. And where he has to basically come in and just like level set everything for these assassins. Like Amanda and I had a whole conversation when we were watching the movie about is he really doing that much?
I was like, they really needed a guy to come in to tell them that they need to clean the car, put the body in the trunk, and change their clothes. Like, I mean, yes, he arranged like taking the car to the specific like junkyard or wherever they took it. But I was like, he's not really doing or saying anything revolutionary here. Just common sense.
These guys just needed a little bit of level setting. That's all.
Yeah, I
I
guess.
I did laugh though every time with that scene that or that sequence of the movie. They all just kept complimenting Jimmy's coffee. It was very funny that it's like, oh yeah, this coffee must actually be gourmet. And Winston Wolfe, of course, would have his coffee with lots of cream and lots of sugar. Of course, man, who's just go go go. So I have a question for you two who hadn't seen this movie before. The idea of the nonlinear narrative. Did you know it was coming? Did it catch you off guard? Did you have any sort of thoughts about the I guess after the fact did you have like I don't want to say trouble piecing it together, but did you have to like really think about like where everything kind of fell into place or how did that work for you in terms of the overall? Because I know for me, the idea of this sort of cut up narrative and, you know, placement of story fragments was something that for me was different and unique the first time I saw it. And it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around things after the fact.
I didn't know that the movie was going to be, I didn't know it was going to be told in that way. So I guess it did catch me off guard because I was just like, oh. But I also didn't know that it was going to be split up into like different stories either. So, and I don't think that I knew that it was not linear until the third one, right? Is that like when it becomes apparent? Because I
I
think it's pretty clear, like the beginning portion into the first story is like, if you didn't know any
mm-hmm,
better, like you would think they're just happening in order.
mm-hmm,
And then I think the same with the second one. Like if you didn't know,
right.
maybe there's things that if you've seen it before, you would catch and be like, obviously. But like I don't think I knew until the last one. Because obviously they kill off Vincent in the
Mm-hmm,
second story, and then he's alive in the third one, which I will say I don't like that they killed him off in the second story. I don't like the way they did it. I feel like I feel like it felt like he was just some like character that we didn't even know or care about. You know what I mean?
Even
Like he
e-
just shot him and then like that was the end of it. Then he
Yeah,
just
it was
left.
very abrupt.
Yeah. And I was like, why are they killing him off? Like he's not one of the main characters that like we've spent a good amount of time with. Um, so I was happy to see him again in the third story, but that like didn't sit super well with me.
Hmm.
So anyways, I I didn't know it was going to be non-linear. I don't necessarily know that I had a hard time. I did not see it coming, but I did at the end of the third story when they started driving and he said like let's go get something to eat or something. I was like, "Oh gee, I wonder where they're going to go." And so I knew that was then going to tie into the diner scene from the beginning. So that wasn't a surprise to me if that was supposed to be like I don't know if that's supposed to be surprising or like a twist or something. Um so I definitely saw that coming. But yeah, I don't think I really had any trouble like piecing it together, but I also don't know that it would necessarily change how I thought about anything if I thought about it all like in the actual like chronological correct order of how things happened.
I think for me, I think generally speaking, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. I'm not a fan of nonlinear storytelling because I think it's done to death these
Mhm.
days, in particularly in TV shows. I maybe to some degree movies too. Um, but I think so often my complaint about nonlinear storytelling is that like it feels the need to like fill in the backstory and and like
Hmm.
you see like this guy and it's like he's holding a gun and then it like flashes back to 20 years ago when he's like this young guy coming, you know what I mean, like, and I just feel like that kind of storytelling is so tired. In this particular case, like this in this movie, I don't feel like I was bothered by it as much because it felt very vignette-y. It felt very
Yeah.
like just kind of pieces to the story, almost episodic in a way that like didn't feel like we need to keep. That was one of my complaints about Oppenheimer was like the jumping back and forth to me made it hard to follow at times. This one I
Mhm.
felt like was so kind of its own separate stories that it was more like watching episodes of a TV show out of order more than it was like having to follow the narrative told in an
Yeah.
traditional way. So even though this is probably more uncommon back then for it to be nonlinear, I felt like I don't know if I quite understood the point or the reason for it, but I didn't find it hard to follow or annoying.
That's fair. I didn't have an issue with it. I guess maybe now you know why you're maybe not as much of a fan of it in today's day and age. Look what the OG was, or one of the OGs was, for inspiring that, and everyone's just trying to copy. But I didn't have an issue with it either. It was definitely one of those where I had to think about it a little bit more. And fun fact about the first sort of intro or prologue, if you will, when Ringo and Honey Bunny are talking together in the diner, you can actually see at one point behind Yolanda slash Honey Bunny in the background as they're talking about Robin the restaurant, you can see Vincent Vega walking to the bathroom or like the back of his head, his white shirt, his long black hair, and everything. I was like, oh, the first time I kind of
That's
caught that, I was
cool.
like, wait a second, hang
I
on,
didn't know that.
that's a really fun catch. I was like, oh, interesting. And I think what's interesting too, and this kind of just clicked in my brain, I think weirdly this last time seeing it, and maybe this is just because I'm in more of like a how do I process things and think about things in today's day and age. One theme from the movie that I caught on with was knowing when to quit and knowing when to not take things one step too far. And that's introduced a little bit there in that first scene between Ringo and Yolanda when they're talking about one last job, one last job. Let's rob this restaurant, and then kind of plays out in terms of like taking it one step too far, taking things too easy, what have you. You know, with Vincent, he is, he runs in all these incidents with, he has the act of God, the divine miracle at this house or at the apartment when all the bullets miss him. And he doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. He's going to go buy heroin and they'll go hang out with Mia. And Mia almost dies. Does that put an end to things? No, it doesn't. Takes him one step too far, goes on the job to kill Butch. Butch kills him. Butch almost dies as a result of having to go back and hold on to something from the past and not just like letting things go and being like, okay, what's better, to play it safe or let things go? And he goes back, gets the watch, has to deal with an assassin or a hitman, and then almost dies in the basement of a pawn shop, which that's a whole crazy scene in itself. And then there's Jules, who is like, I'm done, man. We're good. I'm done. I'm going to try my best to save Ringo and Yolanda in this conversation in the restaurant and try to, hey, let it go, which seems like they took it to heart after the fact, but Vincent never does. Vincent feels very uncomfortable during that scene in the coffee shop. And I think at least for me this time, the nonlinear narrative helped build that idea in my mind. And maybe I'm just thinking too hard about it, but that idea, the nonlinear narrative really, really helped that and helped drive that point home for me about, hey, knowing when to quit, when to let something go, when to pursue something, things like that. So to me, that helped. And I know the first time I saw it, definitely caught me off guard and helped me appreciate it more on future viewings, if you will.
Yeah,
So
I don't think it's a movie I'll watch again, but I could see like getting more out of it on a second viewing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Definitely.
Sorry to get all philosophical and Jules Winfield after his moment of clarity on everybody here.
Okay. So since you mentioned it, Geoff, let's talk about the scene at the pawn shop. Um, I was incredibly annoyed by this scene only because I was like, why does Tarantino always have to do this? Like I was like enjoying the movie. I was like, okay, we got like some crazy stuff happening, but like it's fine, like nothing like too absurd yet and whatever. And then you just like get to this and I was like, I feel like he always just takes it too far. Like not even too far. Well, I don't, whatever. He just always takes it to this really messed up place. Like in my 2 movie experience with him, like it was like kind of reminiscent in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Brad Pitt goes to the compound.
Spawn Ranch.
I feel like it was kind of yeah, the ranch. I feel like it was kind of reminiscent of that there, but I was just like, why does he always have to do this? I felt so uncomfortable and I did not want to watch that scene at all. Even before I knew what was actually happening. And then once I knew what was actually happening, I was like, oh my God. Like
I did want to turn to you at one point during that scene and just catch your reaction. I didn't, but I was waiting just to turn my head as they get down there into the basement. The next thing, after they're both knocked out, and the first thing you see is Marcellus and Butch tied to a chair with a ball gag in their mouth.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just thought that's just what they had laying around. Didn't piece it together, but I just literally thought they were just gonna like torture him and kill him. And I mean, maybe their intent was to kill him afterwards. I don't know. But yeah, I was just like, wow, this is so messed up.
Bring out the gimp.
Yeah, why? He didn't do anything.
Why not?
Stood there.
Hey, that's a thing. That's a thing.
I don't know.
I do feel like there's Quentin Tarantino, like it's probably good he only has like 10 movies because I feel like there are just some things that are just like so, like
he's a little weirdo.
He is a little weirdo. And then but then his defenders, no offense, Geoff, like his defenders are like, think everything he does is like the most brilliant thing of all time.
Hey, I'm not denying I'm a weirdo. I'm telling you that right now. I'm not denying I'm a weirdo.
And like sometimes it could just be like a bad, dumb choice.
I call it inspired.
And
Sure.
I mean, people should be allowed to make their art the way they want to make it. And, it's not like he's taking over some beloved franchise. He always does his own thing, and that's fine. It's his vision. But yeah, sometimes I'm just like not along for the ride on certain things.
Yeah. I thought it was cute that Butch went back for Marcellus. I was like, oh, he's gonna go back and save him. That's cute.
I did like him trying to pick out the weapons to use in the pawn shop. I'm like, this is such a pawn shop thing, being like, oh, let me grab the hammer. No, let me get the bat. Ooh, maybe it's fun with a chainsaw. Oh, but of course they've got a samurai sword or a katana just like hung up here on the wall. And then Marcellus's first words after he shoots the police officer, he's like, "Are you okay? Are we okay?" "Nah, man, I'm not okay." Just laughs. I'm pretty far from okay.
I mean, yeah. I would be too. But yeah, that was kind of he's like, "We cool?"
I'm going to jump around here a little bit if you don't mind. I don't know if we had it.
Just like the movie.
Just like the movie. Oh, I don't know. Do we want to talk any more about the scene in the pawn shop before I jump to something else?
No.
Okay. This is a random thought I had, especially during this viewing that I've never really thought of before. But Jack Rabbit Slims, the restaurant. How mid is the food?
That's not the diner. That's the restaurant with
that's the restaurant
with John Travolta
Mia,
and Uma Thurman.
With Mia and Vincent that they go to with all the celebrities and the twist competition and all they're greeted by Ed Sullivan at the door and there's
I bet it's not as good as the diner food.
Oh, absolutely not. I bet the $5 shake is decent, but the burger and steak I don't think is on the same level.
Yeah.
Oh, can we talk about the shake?
Oh, let's talk about the shake.
Well,
I so want a $5 shake.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, nowadays it would be like a $15 shake.
Exactly. With no booze either.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, first of all, it's ridiculous that what's his face?
Vincent
was scoffing at a $5 milkshake when he just dropped $1,500 on heroin. Like, okay. Sure. Also, Ben, I don't know if this tripped you up, but when she was ordering the milkshake, the waiter asked if she wanted it Martin and Lewis or Amos and Andy. And I was like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? So I had to Google it. And Martin and Lewis and Amos and Andy are two comedy duos, and two of them were white and two of them were black. So he was asking if she wanted the vanilla or chocolate.
Yes. Well, I know who Martin and Lewis and Amos and Andy are, so that did not trip me up.
Okay. I figured you probably would, but I was like, this is your era. You would know. But yeah, I was like, what does that mean?
I bet that was Martin and Lewis, I feel like, are probably still fairly well known, but I feel like Amos and Andy was probably more well known in the 90s as a reference than now, even though it would have been dated even then, but probably that to Hollywood.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, Jack Rabbit Slims seems like a fun place, but the food is probably not the best. Weirdly, I got what I imagine, and Amanda would know this from experience, I got Casa Bonita vibes from Jack Rabbit Slims.
What is Casa Bonita?
You don't even know, Geoff.
I know I don't even know.
Don't even know. This place can't even touch Casa Bonita.
It reminded me of when my wife and I were in Hollywood on we did our honeymoon in San Diego and Coronado, and then went up and spent a day in LA and Hollywood, and we were walking on the Hollywood Boulevard and just walked into some diner, some big spacious diner. It kind of reminded me of this spot, where this spot reminded me of that, and it was but
pretty on brand then.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But of all the food things though in this movie, the one that I want is not Jimmy's coffee. It's not the $5 shake. It's the breakfast that Fabienne is describing in the hotel room to Butch. She's like, I want the big plate of blueberry pancakes with maple syrup and eggs and 5 sausages and a slice of pie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, give me this right now.
And so she was very specific in her description of what she wanted.
I'll also make a recommendation for people listening to go to YouTube. One of my favorite YouTube channels, Binging with Babish, he did a video a few years ago where he recreated the $5 milkshake and tried to theorize, how would that be prepared today? And what would the equivalent of that be in 2020 whatever terms.
I mean, just a standard diner milkshake. I think
He like
that's something he's putting way too much thought into.
I mean, he put in like gold shavings and to try to justify the cost and all that stuff. Got like real stupidly high quality ice cream and
there's no way there were gold shavings.
I know not.
It would have been more than $5 even back then.
That's fair.
It's what you got to do for the content, I guess.
I guess so.
Well, I don't know if you guys have any like final thoughts or funny observations. I know I have a few to note.
Just the soundtrack. The soundtrack again. This is just like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Incredible soundtrack. When the intro credits kick in and I feel
when the Black Eyed Peas come in.
When the Black Eyed Peas come in. When that started, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, wait, what? And then it played out, and then Jungle Boogie kicks in. Oh my gosh, it's so fun and so good. But great use of music in this movie. And
yeah.
I think I know we're probably running short on time, but quick discussion on like foot massages, yay or nay? Are they too much to give somebody a foot
Quentin
massage?
Tarantino being a weirdo.
I know, right?
Well, we talked extensively about his foot thing. Which there's some good shots of Uma Thurman's feet in this to back that up. I don't know. Ben, would you give a guy a foot massage?
No, but no. I'm not. I think we talked about this before. I am not a big massage person in general. I don't really like giving or getting them.
Okay, so, but if you did,
it's probably still no.
So you would agree then that you think a foot massage is like a gateway into more.
I don't know if I'd say that, but you asked me if I would be doing it, and the answer is no.
Okay. For the record, I would give another woman a foot massage.
Right,
I don't know. I don't think it's a gateway. What do you think, Geoff?
Okay.
You want to talk about it?
No, I want to avoid it. I mean, there is a level of intimacy to a massage, but
it depends on how the massage is performed.
That's fair.
You can give a very disconnected foot massage, or you could be all like, ooh, yeah, like into it.
That's true. That's a very good point. Touche. All right.
The things that Quentin Tarantino films make us discuss.
I think that's fair. It's the context of it. If I'm just like, I feel like doing a shoulder, like that's just like a thing like a guy would do another guy. Like if I came up behind him, I was like, yo, what's up, man? I would give him like a quick like shoulder massage. Foot massage, I don't know.
Here's the thing. Here's the takeaway. Don't ever touch a like lead gangster mobster's significant other in any way that could be interpreted as potentially intimate.
There you go.
That's really the takeaway here.
Remember, always give yourself pep talks in the bathroom like Vincent does as Mia's about to snort heroin. Just give yourself a pep talk. Be like, hey, you gotta be careful.
Exactly.
Anyway, that was my last note. Amanda, why don't you finish it up here?
So I was going to talk about the foot massage too. So thank you for making it so I didn't have to talk about that. I thought that was a really interesting choice when they initially introduced Bruce Willis's character, and he literally just stares, not directly into the camera, but you just get a shot of his face for like 3 solid minutes probably while Marcellus Wallace is talking. I thought that was interesting. There are so many memes from this movie. I was pleasantly surprised to know that this is the confused John Travolta meme source, which is just one of my favorite things. And it's also the source of, Ben, I don't know if you've seen this one, but there's a mashup of Grease, and when they're singing like, tell me more, and then it's like, does he look like a bitch?
I have not seen that, but that's really funny.
And so When Jules was saying that, I was like, "Oh my
Oh,
god,
that's
this
funny.
is what it's
I've not
from."
seen that. That's funny.
I'll send it to you. It's so good. I think that was all that I had too. Yeah. You got anything, Ben?
I do not.
Cool. All right, Geoff. So quickly, why don't you give us some movie recommendations that folks can pair with Pulp Fiction?
All right, yeah, I got three. I'll be quick. First one is Quentin Tarantino's debut, Reservoir Dogs. Told in a narrative sort of fashion, unlike this, there is one sort of central narrative and then a couple branch off points. So definitely recommend Reservoir Dogs as kind of this intro point to his career, especially with this movie early on. Number two, I'm going to pair this movie with The Nice Guys, a comedy, a hitman kind of buddy, well, no, not a hitman comedy, a buddy cop comedy from 2016. I think the point that we all highlighted as our favorite from the movie was when Vincent and Jules worked together on screen. So let's find movies where two incredibly likable people, two incredibly good actors are together on screen for large portions of time, going through crime and making funny bits and having thriller moments. I'm going to do that with The Nice Guys and Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. And then the last one is a newer movie, very inspired by a movie like this, called Bad Times at the El Royale. I think we've talked about it here on this podcast before, but again, kind of a narrative-driven movie with multiple characters and feels very kind of grimy and pulpy at times and mysterious at times. So I would pair Bad Times at the El Royale with this movie.
Hee hee, pulpy.
Did you do there?
Intentional.
Thank you, Geoff. Ben, do you have any TV recommendations for us?
I forgot I did this until we got to this part. So no, but I will try to have one next time.
Okay, great.
Great.
I had to remind myself because
I'm
last time you
rusty.
got
I know you
mad.
remembered to ask me, and I did not remember to do one. I mean, if you're talking gratuitous violence, maybe The Boys. I haven't watched it myself, but I hear it's quite, gratuitously violent.
Quite a bloody affair. Yes.
Yes.
All right, all right. Not too much gratuitous violence in this movie, surprisingly.
In Pulp Fiction,
Yeah.
A lot
I
of
feel
it
like
is
there's a fair amount.
a lot of it is implied. Not a lot is shown.
Not as much as some Quentin Tarantino's.
I did see we
Yeah.
have the collector's edition DVD of this, and I bought it at a thrift store for $1. Shout out to the one that we go to in where is it? I forget where it is. Anyway, they have a bonus disc at the end of it, and there's this included in it is a 15-minute Siskel and Ebert bit where they're talking, and actually that is a subject that came up. And they noted that there were a lot of activist groups that wanted this movie to be NC-17, but the movie does skirt by it. And the incident that they specifically called out in the segment that I caught was when Bruce Willis is wielding the katana sword and slicing up the henchman. And the one henchman, when he cuts across like this, the henchman's back is to the camera and we can't see it actually happen. When Bruce Willis stabs him in the gut, you don't see the sword actually going in. Mm-hmm. When Vincent is gunned down by Butch in the apartment, you kind of just briefly see the bullet holes in a body crashing through the door. Or when Vincent and Jules are shooting the guy in the apartment, you don't really see that much. You see it mostly from their side perspective. So yeah, it's one where a lot of violence is implied, but not necessarily a lot of like gratuitousness word is shown. So I think that's why it gets by with the R rating and maybe not being as gratuitous as we think it is.
Yeah. Can confirm. I didn't have to close my eyes at all in this movie like I did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's a testament. That's a testament to the movie.
There you go.
But I also have not watched The Boys. Partly because of that. So anyways, let's move into our top 4. So as I mentioned, we are doing our top 4 John Travolta and or Samuel L. Jackson favorite performances or movies, whatever you guys interpreted that as. We had to combine them because I think both Ben and I would not have had enough to do just one.
I could have made a John Travolta one on my own. I could have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I could not have done one for Samuel L. Jackson, though.
I could have, in theory, done one for Samuel L. Jackson, but not John Travolta, which was a fun thing I learned about myself. So, Ben, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. My honorable mentions go to Saturday Night Fever, which I saw
Hmm.
once, but I remember liking him in it. An Apple show called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, which stars Samuel L. Jackson. I didn't really like the show that much, but he was quite interesting in it. It was about like he played like a 90-something-year-old man in it. And it was kind of interesting. I don't even actually remember if I finished the show, but I remember I liked him in what I saw of it. And then my other honorable mention is John Travolta introducing Adele Dazeem at the Oscars. Um, so my top four, I would say that these are probably my four favorite like properties that starred these two that I've seen, but they're also the ranking might change depending on if I was doing how much I like the movie or TV show overall versus how much I like their performance in it. So I kind of meshed it up here together to figure out this list. My number four is The People versus O.J. Simpson, which starred John Travolta as Robert Shapiro. That was a brilliant, brilliant limited series that I just love. But his performance in it was divisive. Because a lot of them are playing very, they're all playing famous people, but they're all playing very thoughtful performances. And his is a bit more broad and a bit more cartoonish at times, but I still actually thought he was quite effective in the role. It was not my favorite performance in that show, but he was still good in it. Number three is Jurassic Park, featuring Samuel L. Jackson, which, like, I think my Samuel L. Jackson knowledge is way more limited than I realized. Like I've seen Jurassic Park and I've seen this now. I feel like maybe one other Samuel L. Jackson movie. And just like John Travolta in People versus OJ, he's not my favorite part of it, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies and he's in it, so I'm putting it on the list. Number
Hold
two
on to your
is
butts.
number two is Hairspray. Um, Featuring John Travolta. I love Hairspray. And I, again, a Travolta performance that's divisive for some people, especially those who like Harvey Firestein in the Broadway version. It's very different from that. My favorite moment though of his performance in Hairspray was in Welcome to the 60s when he does like a John Travolta lick and he's like, your mama, your mama, your mama, your mama. Yeah, and it's such a John Travolta moment. And I'm like, oh, this dude can still sing. He can still do his John Travolta-ness. And then number one is Grease. I do not like the musical Grease, despite being, mostly favoring musicals over movies. But the reason I don't like the musical of Grease is because I think the movie is so iconic. And I think that it makes the whole thing better, despite its questionable morals. I think it is an iconic movie. I think his performance is iconic in it. It's definitely by far my favorite thing he's ever done that I've seen, and probably even if I were to see everything of his, it would probably still be number one.
Good list. Good list. Okay, Geoff, are you ready?
I am ready. So, fun fact, it's funny that you said that, Ben, about Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson is actually my most viewed actor, my most watched actor on Letterboxd.
Wow.
I've seen 32 of his movies.
All that Marvel stuff.
I was about to say it's a lot of Marvel stuff. But, no, so it's funny. It's funny how you see that and how your perspective is different than mine, because my list was predominantly Samuel L. Jackson movies. Because my honorable mentions were John Travolta's Danny Zuko in Grease, and then John Travolta as Gabriel in the movie Swordfish, which is a bad movie, but like a very fun bad movie. And he's very memorable and entertaining in that movie with a wickedly terrible haircut and great piercings.
Wickedly terrible.
So yeah, that was what I was kind of leaning towards. But my number four is Samuel L. Jackson as Frozone in The Incredibles. Incredibles is a great movie, and
I forgot he did that. Yeah.
He's a very memorable sidekick with a very memorable line delivery of one specific line in general. But again, great movie, and I think he adds a layer to The Incredibles that adds a little bit to like the whole legacy around the superheroes in general. So I think that definitely deserved a role here on this list. Number 3 is John Travolta as Vincent Vega in Pulp Fiction. Again, definition of cool. And I love his character in this. And it's a character that has grown on me more and more. Unlike his co-star, which might be coming up later on in this list, it's a role that's grown on me. Where unlike that one just, the impact was felt immediately. This one, it's grown on me, and it's gotten more and more enjoyable the more and more that I've seen Pulp Fiction. So I'm going to put Vincent Vega as number 3. Number 2 is Samuel L. Jackson as Steven in Django Unchained, another Quentin Tarantino movie, where he is Calvin, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who's the villain in the movie. He's his right-hand man, and takes on an extra layer because the movie is about slavery and a black man liberating slaves, taking out slave owners, KKK members, things like that. And the Samuel L. Jackson character adds another layer where he could be classified as, I don't want to say like Uncle Tom, for example, but someone who he's gotten out of slavery per se, but because he's the assistant to this evil white man, is laying down the hammer on slaves, on other black people and things like that, and really helping out this slave owner and things like that. So it's a very layered performance, a very effective performance, and I think you get a lot out of it. So Samuel L. Jackson as Steven is number 2, and then number 1, Jules Winfield, played by Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Definition of cool. Amazing.
But John Travolta was the definition of cool in that movie.
Okay, fine. John Travolta is Vincent Vega, definition of cool. Jules Winfield in Pulp Fiction is the definition of, I don't even want to like
super cool.
We'll go badass, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
just like a suave badass sort of thing. And someone who is unaffected by anything and is, you could say wise, could say experienced, could say a lot of things about the Jules Winfield character. But the intro segment where he munches down the big kahuna burger, washes it down with a Sprite, and then blows the dude away is very, very awesome and memorable and great. So Jules Winfield, played by Samuel L. Jackson, number 1 on this list.
Nice. Good list. So a lot of mine have already been said, so this will be quick. But I will just note, I didn't realize that I had like not really seen a lot of John Travolta movies until I actually looked this up. So I had only seen Grease and Hairspray. Also Bolt, but he was just a voice actor in that, so I don't count it. So really just Grease and Hairspray, which I was like, what? That doesn't even make sense, but I don't know. I don't know. I also have not seen a ton of Samuel L. Jackson movies if you remove all the Marvel ones. Yeah, this was an interesting list to make. I do not have any honorable mentions. So my number 4 is both of them in Pulp Fiction. As we already talked about, I really loved them. I loved them together. I loved their little bantering back and forth, and just thought they were both really, as Geoff said, cool and unique characters. And I thought they both did an excellent job. Number 3 is Where's My Super Suit? Samuel L. Jackson in The Incredibles as Frozone. I don't know. He's great.
So John Travolta's Bolt doesn't count, but this one does.
Yeah, it does. I mean, also, I don't really remember Bolt at all.
I was about to say Incredibles.
I'm not making arguments better at this.
But
Bolt.
Samuel L. Jackson he's iconic as Frozone in The Incredibles.
Okay.
There you go. That's it. Who even knew that John Travolta was Bolt? Nobody. Nobody knows that. Who has even seen Bolt?
I feel like if I listened to Bolt for 5 minutes, I could probably tell it was John Travolta. But continue.
I mean, yes, probably. But have you seen Bolt? No. Has anybody you know seen Bolt? No.
Well, you apparently.
Yeah, but I don't remember it, so it doesn't really count. Anyways, my number 2 is just a broad Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury in the Marvel movies. I don't think I could possibly go through and actually pick one of the movies where I thought his performance was better than the others, but I do genuinely very much enjoy the Nick Fury character as a whole over the, phase 1 Infinity Saga of Marvel. So that gets number 2. And then number 1, John Travolta as Danny Zuko in Grease, because it's iconic. It's so good. He's so good in that movie. So despite all of his Scientology powers bringing him roles and all that other BS,
No
we'll
love for
overlook
Battlefield
that.
Earth or Snakes on a Plane.
I know. Shocking.
Oh darn.
I will say I've never actually seen Snakes on a Plane. I know I need to.
Yeah.
That's always our trivia name when we go out with our friend. It is Snapes on a Plane, referencing Harry Potter.
I got that.
Okay, good. Just wanted to lay it out there. Actually, I didn't know how clearly it was going to go through that I wasn't saying snake. I was like, I hope everyone can hear the p.
Snapes on a plane.
Snapes on a plane. Oh, all right. Well, that was a good season opener.
Yes. Get our feet wet again.
Yeah, baseball.
We're back, baby.
We're back.
We're back. Season 2.
So if you want to watch along with us for our next episode, we will be watching Liar Liar, Jim Carrey classic movie from the 90s. So be sure to watch along and tune in next week to hear our thoughts on it. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review and follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see y'all next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.